For years, I built trails. And one day I happened to meet a trail builder, and just offhand he mentioned that the Forest Service was putting up a call for bids to clear boundary between U.S. and Canada. '93, from Ross Lake to Similkameen River, which is by Oroville. When you're building trail, you have to clear at least 10 feet wide. And this called for 20 feet wide. Now, I thought, there can't be that many trees on a 20-foot wide swath. What I didn't know was that 20-foot width had to be air width, so you could look down on site. So any tree with limbs going into that 20-foot width had to be cut. So it turned out to be 40 and 50 feet wide we had to cut because the trees had limbs on them. We bid it in 1983, but it was high country. So the mountains didn't open up till May or June. So we started like May of '84. My nephew, L. Montgomery, my nephew, James Montgomery, and we thought the three of us could do it. We had chainsaws, a transit, just fallen trees, all we were doing. This ground was mostly on mountainsides or canyons. What happened, it was re-cleared in 1934. And this was 1984, 50 years later. And mostly what happened, fire had gone through and burned the timber, so you couldn't see the old boundary. And we were going through and recutting the trees. The original line, their equipment wasn't good, so it didn't go straight. We had data that we had to go with. We'd locate our first monument. Then the second one, we'd have to find the second one. There are markers on the boundary that shows where it is. It's 3-foot square concrete foundation, 6 feet deep into the ground, and they have an obelisk like the Washington Monument, and it's set in this concrete. It was in 3 sections, and we had to repair any monuments that were damaged and also repaint the base. And if a monument was missing, we had to replace it. They tried to put the monuments where people came through, in the valleys. But if they didn't have that, they put them in the very peaks of the mountains. And so we had a monument about 1.5 miles apart. And some of them up to 2.5 miles, some as close as 3/4 mile. The canyons are so deep and the mountains so high that by the time we left the shelter and got where we were clearing, we were tired. So we started realizing we had to have a helicopter there to get us to work each day. The helicopter would come at noon and drop us our lunch and our afternoon's gas and our afternoon's water, and so that we didn't have to carry that extra stuff. Anyway, he's a wonderful helicopter pilot. He'd flown in Vietnam and he taught pilots how to do combat in Vietnam. Wonderful helicopter pilot. He had a mothballed helicopter It's called a Dell G47. It's one of those bubble choppers. It's got kind of a big bubble over it. It's got a Lycoming engine, 270 horsepower piston engine. The other helicopters got turbines in them. Our pilot called it lemon of all helicopters. It wasn't made for mountain work. We were sometimes over 8,000 feet. And this helicopter just didn't have the power to, that thin air to pick up. So we took everything off the helicopter we could get off, including the doors, the racks on the sides, and everything, got as light as we could. One evening as we were finishing working, we looked to the north. There's a column of smoke going up. Well, about noon that day, a big helicopter came flying overhead, loudspeaker. He said, "Get back to your camp in 15 minutes. The fire's going to be on you." So we rushed back to camp, and then they sent a smaller helicopter. He picked us up, took us out to the fire camp, and they wouldn't let us take anything. They said, "We don't have time." Alfred threw in one chainsaw. So we got this fire camp. There were 200 men there doing nothing. And we immediately set to work. We cleared a landing pad for a better landing pad for the helicopters. We helped them set up toilets and food serving thing. The chef was using these little Coleman stoves to try to feed 200 men. He was really stressed out. Anyway, we worked all the time we were there, and those other guys just sat. One kid came and said, "You know, I'm getting $12 an hour, and I'm not doing anything at all." He was so proud of that. Trees 4 and 5 feet thick, and tall and limbless, and we had to cut them. And they're in the wilderness. There's no way of getting them out or anything up there, you know, miles from civilization. And then later they had a contract where we could bid on, but we'd had enough of that, of limiting them and dragging the stuff off the boundary even for 93 miles, but we passed on it. Probably a couple 100 feet. It was a cedar tree. It was a bad place for the helicopter to land. He lit on the stump of it. It was over 8 feet thick. And it was on a steep hillside. At the bottom, it looked like a redwood because the roots went down the hill, spread out. And Alfred, he took his saw and bored little holes in, and we stuck like limbs in there. And he kept walking out there till he got out over about 20 feet in the air. He cut a little undercut. And then he started from there and started going around the tree. We only had 24-inch bars, but the thing was hollow. He got about 2/3 away. It went straight down the hill. It was like a bomb hitting. It just exploded when it hit the ground because it's hollow and it's rotten in the center. What we had him doing was cutting the little trees in the middle of the boundary. He and I were working together, cutting trees. I had my back to him. He cut off a 9-inch tree. No undercut, just cut it off. He hit me right on top of the head with it, so hard that it's like a baseball bat. It should have killed me. I had an angel watch me. I had to. It should have killed me instantly. And anyway, it didn't even knock me out. It hit me hard enough so it embedded bark in my head. Took out the bark, and I put a stocking cap back on and went back to work, and I felt fine. I have never felt so bad in my life about what this happened. James and I, this was before we had the helicopter, and just the three of us. Al was running transit, James and I were cutting. I was up the hill ahead of James. I run out of gas. I was filling my saw and I heard his saw idling. And I may have sharpened my saw, and that saw kept idling. I wondered why he had that saw sitting there idling. I went back. He was laying under a tree. There's a big tree, had 4 snags in it, and he didn't see one of them. And that snag came down and got him. I thought he was dead. He's laying under this tree unconscious. The only thing that saved him, this tree fell on the ones that went down. It held it off far enough so he didn't get crushed. Well, when he came to, he was feeling quite bad. But he said, I'll carry this stuff ahead, the gas and the oil. And this before I had the helicopter, we had water and we had lunch. And we'd take it ahead as we worked. So he carried it ahead. He didn't come back. And we had this terrible forest fire raging on the ridge above us. And Al and I became frantic. We were crying and hollering and running back and forth. We couldn't find him. We thought he passed out somewhere out there. Anyway, he came walking back. He'd gotten lost out there because you couldn't see the boundary. And he had to carry all our stuff with him. He finally found his way back, and he was okay. But the worst I've ever felt in my life. I thought he was dead. Alfred, he's the only one that just had minor things happen where he got scraped up a little bit and stuff. Oh, what he did, there was a waterfall on the boundary, and it was really steep alongside it. And I said, I'm not going down there. He said, I'm going to go down there. Well, he went down, he couldn't get back out. So the helicopter was coming in that day, so I called him, yell out of this spot. But that was a few of the adventures we had. We were having trouble finding one of the monuments. And so I got in a helicopter and we went looking, and there was where I thought it would be, there's a pointed mountain there, and the wind was blowing really hard. And there was a boulder, he couldn't sit down, but he hovered over this boulder and I jumped down on it. Well, he got caught in, it's called a wind shear. The wind coming up over the top was on one side of the road and going on this side, it started turning bottom side up. Finally, he got out of it and they didn't come to any harm. But I found the monument. He came back and got a little bit above this rock. I stepped up on the skids, and all of a sudden we were about 100 feet in the air off the side. Because the wind came back, just blew us out in space. Exciting experience. It's really hard to find a place to land a helicopter. So we were setting up this new camp, and the only place you could land, there was a bare hillside that was middling steep. Well, I fell a tree across the hillside and blocked it so he could land with his back of his skids on it. Well, anyway, it worked fine. And we were out cutting, and a hailstorm came along. I mean, it was really pelting us. And it was a hot day, so I was just wearing a t-shirt. And so he went around picking up guys, and he picked up a couple of them, lit on this log. The log rolled, and he had the power down a little bit. And he said he's never been more frightened than he crashed one time. He said he was more scared this time, because he said if that rotor had hit the ground, that'd been it for everybody there. We're standing outside our shelter, And here came a huge helicopter, a Canadian helicopter, Canadian National Guard. It was 98 feet, a tipped rotor, one of those like a Chinook. He come and everything, oh, look at that helicopter, he's flying pretty low. All of a sudden he dropped a smoke bomb. Our pilot says, oh no. He run to our helicopter. We had what's called an ELB on an emergency locator beacon that got set off accidentally. And that helicopter come out to rescue us. And they landed, and he ran over there and explained that what happened, the plane going overhead had hurt it and radioed them, and they come out probably to pick up the pieces. And so they said, we'll call it a training exercise. We could have been charged for it.